Alright. Ready to go. We good? Everybody good? Everybody's good? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the very first episode of the MMA Bros. I'm your host, Bradley Jones.
Yeah,
my co-host.
I'm Cope McKinley.
It's Cope McKinley. Alright. Today is Sunday, November the 16th. First on the docket, we will be recapping UFC 180, where we saw the first trip to Mexico for the UFC, and we got our new interim heavyweight champion in the form of Fabricio Verdum. Let's open up with the Verdum and Hunt fight. Your thoughts on it?
I thought it went really well for Hunt, like surprisingly well.
He did do very well, a lot better than I thought he was going to do.
And even on the ground, he definitely didn't control it on the ground, but when he was on top, he did a really good job of keeping it in line with Verdum while he was inside that guard. And that cat's trying to... Can you see him from the...
I don't know.
Can you see him from the thing? I mean, don't
No.
make it...
Yeah,
No.
you might have to put him up if he's going to throw me fucking with shit.
This
No,
damn bug.
Right.
He's freaking out about a bug. Get
Or
back.
that could just be your thing, like a cat just kind of walks through.
Yeah, that's
No,
what it
he's
is.
going to be in
I mean,
and
he'll
out
be
all
in
the
it, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the fight seemed to be going Mark Hunt's way going into the second round, and this fight is a perfect example of like what MMA is. I mean, like anything can happen at any point, and a guy who is coming into this fight and people are saying his only chance to win is a stoppage via submission, and if he can't get it into the ground, those like for early goings before Hunt gets tired, then he's pretty much fucked, and he wins via flying knee and follow-up strikes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I really thought the elevation was going to play... I thought it was going to be a lot bigger factor on the entire card, but it really didn't seem to affect any of the tough fights, because, I mean, they were all first-round finishes. But Hunt definitely... I mean, he did excellent that first round, really tore up Verdum on the feet. Pretty much any time he connected with Verdum, Verdum was hurt. Got rocked, dropped him. Honestly, if he would have rushed him when he dropped him, he may have been able to finish him. But...
see, I almost feel like that first drop wasn't a drop. I feel like that.
I think it was a pretty
I feel like
legitimate
that
drop.
was a. I feel like that was a Fedor matchup style bait and switch.
Okay.
I mean, although I don't know how hurt Hunt was or Verdum. I don't know how hurt Verdum was, but it was a scary time for him being in there with Hunt.
Yeah.
Is not a good deal. And so of course next Verdum is gonna fight Kane, obviously, assuming he can come back.
Around presumably around the March time frame, we'll have our official heavyweight matchup. So then moving on to the co-main event, we saw Kelvin Gastelum very quickly take care of business with Jake Ellenberger, submitting him in the first round via rear naked choke. Thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, man, a really big win for Gastelum, who came into the fight at number 11.
Yeah.
And
Ellenberger was ranked 7th.
so yeah, he was just breaking into that top 10, taking on a guy with a decent amount of name value. Ellenberger, he's been around a while. He's fought a bunch of the who's who in the UFC welterweight division. He's fought Condit. He's fought he fought Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald. We've got Hendricks. Didn't he fight Hendricks?
No, I
Lost?
didn't fight him. I don't think
Did he
he
lose? No, that was Condit. They lost split decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fought a lot of named guys. Nate Marquardt, he's knocked him out.
Yep.
And so this was a big fight for both guys in that Ellenberger needed to get back in that win column, and Gastelum wanted to stay undefeated and break into the top 10, which he did in
very convincing fashion.
Yeah.
The number one contender in Robbie Lawler couldn't put him away into the third round. Gastelum got it done in the first. Very impressive. And then Rory, who is the upcoming second number one contender, also could not put him away. So very, very impressive performance from Gastelum.
Gastelum looked really quick. He looked like his punches were getting there first most of the time.
Yeah.
He was still leaving a lot of openings, which he was getting caught. Not hurt, though, because, he's still young.
Very young.
And
what, 23, 24, something like that?
He's,
a lot of grown dudes, still.
So he still has a chin, and he was getting caught by Ellenberger, who, while he has hands, isn't really known for it. So, Gastelum is really going to have to watch that shit against the killers.
Yeah. He definitely moves into the top 10 now. And a lot of good matchups for him there. As Woodley's open, Woodley's a bit out of reach, but he can take on a lower. Woodley's ranked, I think, fourth at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe jumping a little bit too high, but a lower end 5 to 10 guy be a good matchup for Gastelum going forward.
Yeah.
So we moved on to the third fight of the night. Down on the card, we saw Dennis Bermudez take a quick loss again in the first round.
Disappointing.
At the hands of Ricardo Lamas, coming off of his loss to Jose Aldo. He rebounded in a big way, got a first round finish.
Now, did Lamas... I'm trying to think. Let's see. I feel like was this his comeback fight?
Yes.
Whoa, that's been a long time.
It's February. He co-main evented under Barao and Faber 2.
Yeah. Man, that's great. Well, Bermudez, who's on this, he was on this crazy tear, submitted Clay Guida last time. But yeah, he hadn't gotten that marquee guy or a guy who'd fought for a title.
Next level competitor.
And he really needed that to gauge where he was at, and it looks like he's not there yet.
Not there yet. But he's
there. I mean, he didn't do bad against Lamas.
Not at all.
But he got caught. And he got caught in a position where early in the fight, literally the same scramble happened. He had his wits about him, and he didn't get caught. And then he got dropped by the jab, same position, and did get caught. Solid ass win from Lamas. And I don't know who you match Lamas up with now.
It's bad to wish this on anyone. I'm not wishing for him to get hurt, but I feel like a matchup between I was gonna go with Lamas and McGregor if Seaver got hurt, but I'd honestly rather see Lamas versus Chad Mendez. Mendez coming off of the loss. They're both elite guys. Mendez is probably not that far away from a third fight with Aldo, seeing as how well he did in the second one. I'd say a good fight with Mendez next for Lamas. Makes a lot of sense to me. Mendez already called him out, so might as well just let that one play through.
Yeah. I feel like there is another... I would say you'd wait for Mendez.
Until later down the road?
Wait for... you just have a whole tangle of dudes at 45.
Yeah, 45 is really blown up.
So you have Frankie Edgar fighting Cub Swanson coming up. Mm-hmm. That's a big fight for Cub Swanson, mostly because if he wins, he gets a shot. If he loses,
Edgar does not get a shot.
So what that means is you put Edgar and Cub Swanson together. If Swanson loses, He goes against money. Edgar versus Lamas.
Yeah, I get on board with that.
But then Swanson wins, which I think he will. Now you got a whole mess.
And you got to deal with Conor McGregor and Dennis Siver.
I guess you
January.
could just have Mendez versus. I guess you could just have Mendez versus Edgar, which, fucking hell, that would be a fight.
Yeah, that would.
That would be
A lot of cool stuff that could happen if that was way. And we'll wrap up 180. We'll jump across the pond to the second event of last night, which was Bellator 131. Which is the big debut under Scott Coker, which saw the main event of two very old, two very retired, should be retired, Tito Ortiz and Stephan Bonner went to a very lazy war of 3 rounds in what was just an awful fight. What were your thoughts on this terrible performance?
It went on forever, man.
It
I felt like that
two
fight
old men.
took 30 minutes to play out because it was the same thing.
It's in slow motion.
It wasn't slow. It looked like they were fighting at heavyweight at altitude.
Bonner
Looked awful.
Bonner especially looked
The whole
horrible.
thing felt like. It really felt weird. It felt like everyone was trying to relive something.
Yeah.
It felt like everyone was trying to relive something. Like Bonner was trying to relive this crazy ass war on Spike TV.
Yeah.
And he's just not. He's not young anymore.
Yeah.
Not young.
Now, while their fight was terrible overall, how do you feel about the new Scott Coker Bellator? Thought it was much improved, obviously.
I'll say
Switched to a
this:
monthly format.
even though that fight, I like fights like that.
Yeah, they're fun fights. They're fights that don't necessarily
They mean nothing. They
to
don't mean
mean
anything
anything.
for Bellator's division. They don't mean anything for the UFC's division. Literally, the whole world of MMA stays exactly the same no matter what happens in that fight. But I still love that kind of matchup. I like the kind of matchup that is just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Why not? And that's what Scott Coker's known for.
Yeah.
And the whole card just like felt, it just felt Scott like.
It definitely felt different.
It felt like Strikeforce. You had
very Strikeforce.
the way the walk-ins were.
Yeah, back to the big ramp.
Back to the big ramp, and in the matchups of the main card, or I guess like the ones that were like
The heavy hitter matchups.
the ones that I was gonna see,
Chandler Brooks.
Chandler Brooks and Doug Marshall, and that's who it was, right? Was it Doug Marshall?
And Melvin Manhoef, right?
Yeah. Those 3 matchups. The only one that was even part of the old Bellator was Chandler and Brooks, which that fight was fucking crazy.
And this fight wouldn't have even happened under the old Bellator rules because they would have had to wait for a whole nother season to go by. But instead, since
so dumb.
Coker just made the fight happen, which is what we wanted anyway. People would have lost the interest in the hype of the first one
I wouldn't
if they'd waited so
cared.
long. No one cared.
Oh, you mean 9 months later that guy's gonna have to shake off ring rust against a new #1 contender who's fought 3 times in this past year? That's what you're telling me? Yeah. Should work, right? Or if my champ wants to stay active, I'm just gonna put him up against some random ass fighter.
Right.
Like putting our heavyweight champ against Travis View and losing.
Yeah, Bjorn liked to take some questionable business decisions. So then, jumping across to our third and final fight card of last night, we saw Wasif 13. World Series of Fighting, say it. Actually, no, we saw World Series Fighting 15. My mistake. Where on our main event, we saw the middleweight champion David Branch defend his title by defeating Yushin Okami The 4th round TKO. Definitely a throwback to the UFC. 2 UFC guys.
2 guys in the UFC that weren't even close to each other in rank.
At all.
At all in the UFC. And then they meet outside. You see how it would have shaken out?
And I think,
possibly.
before this, I thought Okami clearly
All
had
the way,
advantage.
right?
I mean, Okami stood in. Now, granted, he did get obliterated, but he did stand in there with Anderson Silva for over a round before getting, finished.
I mean,
handily,
if
but
that's the transfer rate from Anderson Silva to David Branch, 3 rounds.
3 rounds. It's
Yeah,
good.
you just like...
And this is prime Anderson, of course. But yeah, Branch took care of business. Okami. I feel there's a trend. I feel like with World Series fighting, when fighters leave the UFC and they go to World Series fighting, they tend to do worse. Look at Fitch. Fitch came over, lost instantly, where he was expected to do tremendous things. Lost instantly.
Namfam described being cut from the UFC like breaking up with your girlfriend.
Yes.
Being broken up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may be the effect that it has
Yeah.
on a fighter. Kind of depresses them a little bit.
I would imagine.
Maybe it's the kind of thing that makes you miss weight in your past 2 fights out of the UFC.
Which
Melvin
brings
Gillard.
us to Melvin Gillard.
Justin Gaethje.
Gillard was here fighting.
Gaethje. There we go.
Fighting in his 2nd fight in World Series fighting. 2nd fight being a title fight. And he missed weight for this title fight. And he missed weight in his first World Series fight.
Sure did.
Where he had an issue once. But leading up to his exit from the UFC, he did not even have an issue with cutting weight. And now he's left the UFC and is demonstrating himself in an even worse light by now doing 2 bad mistakes when he could have won a title and been right back in a position to re-enter the UFC as a champion from another organization. But, alas,
Didn't go
missed
that
weight.
way.
Then
Trained for 5,
lost
fought
anyway.
3.
Fought 3 and lost a split decision.
Yeah.
So, that was a wipe there. So, we've recapped this past weekend. Now we're moving on to upcoming matchups that were recently announced over the past week. We got a lot of big matchups. 5 bangers. We will start with the ultimate matchup of Gustafsson versus Rumble.
Damn, yo, this is about to be... Oh, this is going to be awesome.
We are
I can't
headlining a Fox card, the first international Fox card. It
On
will be
Big
taking
Fox.
place in Sweden on Big Fox. For #1 contender, Gustafsson versus Rumble.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's fantastic.
I can't
Excellent
wait.
fight. I can't wait for that fight. Even better, co-main event on this card features Dan Henderson dropping to middleweight to take on Gegard Mousasi.
And they're... Ooh, yeah, that fight is really cool.
It's another fantastic fight.
That's such a good fight. I mean, both guys are kind of that, like, fuck a weight class.
We fight to fight.
Fight to
kinda
fight.
Guys.
They've both gone from anyway 85 to heavy. Mousasi fighting at heavyweight outside the UFC in Dream in their Super Hulk tournament before he got hurt. And the dude's only 29.
Yeah.
He's only 29. He's like 30-something and 7, 30-something and 5, and is almost as experienced as 44-year-old Dan Henderson.
Yes. And he is a phenomenal kickboxer. He has excellent stand-up. On paper, I feel like Mousasi should just obliterate Dan Henderson. But should. And you never know. I mean, Dan Henderson has a tendency of getting those knockouts. I mean, you can land the punch.
If he can
It only takes one.
Yeah, if he can land a punch. Although Mousasi isn't really known for getting...
Not a one-punch knockout kind of guy. But
he's not known for one-punch knockouts. He's not known for getting knocked out often.
be a good matchup. We also got Tate versus McMahon for 183. So we see Misha Tate taking on Sarah McMahon on the Super Bowl Anderson Silva versus Nick Diaz card.
That's that's a fight.
It's a fight. Top tier women.
Two top tier 135 women.
Both taking losses. Tate already taken 2 losses to Rousey. But that's still a
I don't
fight.
see.
It's
Yeah,
still a money fight to make a third
it would
matchup.
still sell.
McMahon has a lot of work to do to get to rematch. McMahon looked bad. Lost in 17 seconds. It's hard to come back from
Just
that for
awful.
another title shot. So,
Sucks for her.
but she's still an Olympic wrestler, so I mean you can't really take that away.
You can't. I mean, I feel like they're running an uphill battle with that chick.
Yeah.
She's not really that marketable. She's a hell of an athlete, but I have never seen.
That's crazy.
I've never seen fan hype.
Yeah.
Behind Sarah McMahon.
I don't think we ever will.
No, we won't. Misha Tate. What did she do with a win? I mean, like, I don't know. I think that fight's. If Rousey is still the champ, it almost doesn't matter how well you do.
Yeah.
Because eventually you're going to get put up with her, and she's going to throw you on your head, lock up your arm, and you're right back in the middle of the pack. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And rounding out our 2 final big fights, both taking place at UFC 184, headlined by Chris Weidman and Vitor Belfort. We get Jakar versus Yoel Romero.
That's solid.
First big one, essentially number 1 contender fight. Maybe not so much for Romero, but definitely for Jakar. And we also get the matchup of Bigfoot versus Mir. Mir having lost 4 straight going into this matchup. Bigfoot getting knocked out by Arlovsky in his most recent outing. Nowhere to go for either one of them. Bigfoot's already lost to Kane twice. Rematch he shouldn't have even got in the first place. Definitely, I don't think he's ever going to see neither one of them will ever see a title fight again, so whatever.
And
Good
it's
heavyweight
amazing
matchup.
to me that Bigfoot Silva saw one as recently as he did.
Yeah.
Because he never seemed to me a guy that was just like, oh yeah.
No, definitely got his by default.
Yeah, we got to get him in here. He's the next big thing.
Nah. But, he goes in there. When he's on TRT, he puts on this pretty dope.
And when he's not, he gets
when he's not, he just gets knocked out real quick.
So, alright, so Frank Mir and him, they're going to throw down, middle of the octagon. I don't know how that's going to happen, and it almost is irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean, they both have name value, but
They
it
have name value.
doesn't matter. I mean, Mir, I feel like win or lose, is just gone. That's over. That's it for you. Even win,
I mean,
he's
he
retired.
should, right?
He should. Bigfoot, he's just there. He's just going to keep fighting. Yeah, he's just going to be a middle tier guy, float around the 6 to 10 range. I mean, he gets stomped by anyone above top 5. Imagine him versus Dos Santos. How long before Dos Santos knocks him out?
Frank Mir?
No, Mir already got slept by Dos Santos. Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah. Not long. No, I mean, like, Dos Santos versus Bigfoot would be...
Dos Santos versus anyone, essentially.
I know. I can't wait.
He's so good. Him and Miosic is going to be fantastic. We'll get there.
Yes.
So then, this coming weekend, we have Fight Night Edgar versus Swanson, where we will see Swanson, who has been promised a title shot with a win, and get his long-awaited rematch with Jose Aldo. Also in our co-main event, Bobby Green versus Edson Barboza. Awesome lightweight fight. Barboza's a beast. Green's a beast. Green coming off, taking a split decision over Josh Thompson. Barboza, TKO win, body kick, his last fight. Before that, dropped to, he got submitted in the first by Donald Cerrone, but he looked very well. He looked very good in the first round before getting dropped. So yeah, Edgar Swanson, what do you got?
I mean, the wrestling is kind of a wash for me. I don't necessarily think of either of them as like standout wrestlers.
No.
Edgar is good. He came into the UFC as a wrestler. Swanson has he's got the deciding factor, which is that power. And, you get caught by Maynard, he's not really all that quick. He's not going to be able to capitalize on it. But if Frankie gets caught by a dude like Swanson, that's trouble.
Yeah,
and I think that's trouble he will run into in the inside of 25 minutes.
Yeah. Definitely give Swanson a striking advantage.
For real. Not a striking advantage, I would say just a power advantage.
I mean, striking. I mean, Frankie's quicker and he's got those short arms, but I feel like Swanson knows how to use his reach better. He's more of like a Conor McGregor, keeps you on the distance. Where Frankie's so short, he's got to get in. He's got to get on the inside before he can land anything. I just think Swanson just has the reach to keep him away, stop him from landing anything. And Frankie's not known for having the most powerful punches, so I think for the most part, Cub should seal up a title fight. See him versus Aldo early next year.
Yeah, and then probably, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a good one. And then Green versus...
Green Barboza.
Barboza is a solid-ass matchup because...
Fantastic fight.
What more do you want? What more do you want out of a matchup? Barboza is a killer. Throws hands, throws feet, elbows, knees. Hurts.
Yeah.
Green.
More of like a Diaz style of striking, but still very effective.
Green's head movement is off the chain.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think that it'll be a good test because both fighters are elusive, but a different kind of elusive. And it all depends because Barboza is more of that like slipping style, where he's on the inside. He likes to throw those hands, and if Green has it his way, he fights from the outside and just kind of just moves out of the way. And I don't know who I have in that fight.
I don't either.
I don't know who I want.
So close.
The biggest factor in that fight, more than likely, will be Green's personal life.
Yeah.
Which I think will be really hard to overcome.
He has a lot going on in his personal life.
Yeah, so I think just due to that, I would have to give the advantage to Barboza.
The guy's got a rough life. For sure. And with that... we bring a wrap to the very first episode of the MMA Bros. Thank you for joining us today, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next week.
Go, Purple.